everyone. Welcome back to Virtue Signal, the podcast about being moral in amoral times. I'm here with Taylor Meanswell.
Hello.
I'm here with Andre Kello.
Oh, it's good to be back.
And we are here to talk about the 2004 novel The Sluts by Dennis Cooper, which I forced everyone to read to middling opinions, or varying opinions, not middling, varying opinions. I love this book. I think it's really funny. I think it asks a lot of interesting questions. I think it's very formally fascinating. If anyone would like to summarize, I'd appreciate it. Taylor, you usually do the honors.
I decline.
Okay,
All
that's
right,
fine.
I'll tell you what happens in the book. It is a relatively linear
Yeah, I would say so.
story about a sex worker living in various parts of California between the middle, I think August of 2001 and like summer of 2002.
Yeah, 9/11 happens, but they don't mention it.
Yeah, 9/11 happens and it goes unmentioned. That's right. Which
It's hilarious.
I think specifically means that like the events of this story are happening at the exact same time. At least the very beginning of the book is happening at the exact same time as my year of rest and relaxation.
Yes, yeah.
All right. So there's a sex worker in California with at one point possibly in San Diego, at one point in Los Angeles, San Francisco, maybe even Portland, as far north as Portland, Oregon. And different users of an online forum are discussing with each other the possibility that this person, who may or may not be named Brad, is dead, about to die, going to be murdered, has been murdered on a snuff film, possibly more than once.
Yeah.
And there's a significant debate as to whether this person is the same person as other people who are being discussed, and are the clients who are discussing these things on the web forum, are they telling the truth? That's unclear. They admit to lying and then insist that everything that they say following is the truth, and then admit to lying again. We also see a series of what appear to be phone calls or text messages between different characters in the story, though it isn't clear exactly who is who. And then when we get to the end, there is a question as to whether or not any of these events have occurred, or if it was all just made up by a bunch of losers who frequent a website.
Yeah.
Bulletin board of some kind, and nothing is ever really clear about what may or may not have occurred.
It's sort of also about like early-ish internet forum culture, I think.
Yeah, I mean early compared to now.
That's
but
not early.
I can tell you that in the year 2000, being on internet forums, it felt like, wow, this is the final form of this incredibly old and sophisticated way of people interacting with
Nothing
one another.
will ever transcend this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was so much more. By 2001, it was so much more complicated and developed than, say, for example, like the way people would be on chat rooms on AOL or even CompuServe or Prodigy in the mid-90s. It is so incredibly specifically about internet culture from one, like, 18-month period.
Yeah. It's like kind of a time capsule in a really interesting way, I think. In that sense, I think of it as a kind of historical piece, as an historical novel.
Yeah.
I would say that. I think
not the distant past at the time, because
No.
this is a book that was published in 2005 by
I'm sorry. Was it
Dennis
2005?
Cooper. Did you say 2000?
I think it's 2004.
Is it 2004?
Yeah.
It's, it's like first
2004, yeah.
First W administration, right? It definitely feels like Web 1.0.
But it's so hyper local. Like they don't talk about anything in terms of like beyond just the particular scope of this online community and like the sprawling apparatuses that emerge from it.
It's solipsistic and narrow focused, the way that all internet culture was at the time. It derived from like even these Usenet groups from the early 90s. you know, where you would be in an online community that only, for example, discussed the most recent episode of The X-Files. If you
Yeah.
want to talk about previous episodes, you have to go to a different one.
Get the fuck out of here. Yeah.
Right. And that is the attitude people had. People
Oh,
were
yeah.
incredibly gross and cruel to each
Oh,
other on
yeah.
the early internet, just the way that they're incredibly gross and cruel to each other.
Yeah,
on the
that hasn't
internet
changed
now.
really.
No, it was always this way.
Yeah, it's kind of a cesspool. So I think the generic aspect of this book really interests me. I think there's a lot of like sort of comedy of manners elements to it. There's a kind of Thackeray quality where like there's so many fucking characters. It's also very much like the postmodern novel, like what's real, what's not. Let's play with this sense of reality.
Like a Rashomon type thing, people arguing with each other over what is or isn't real.
Well, but I one thing I used to describe this book in terms of its like plot is that it's kind of like the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, except it's a bunch of gay guys and Brad's butthole. Like that's the Traveling Pants, and they all have like, oh, it's just, you know, oh, it's the friends we made along the way, you know. It's like, yeah, that kind of sociality.
Yeah, I do think that you get a sense that the people who are participating in this online forum more or less understand that there is a kind of myth-making and narrative element to their interactions. Nobody seems that upset or surprised to discover that everyone has been lying about everything the entire time.
Which in that sense makes it kind of like a Western in like the myth-making aspect of it.
Yeah, I could see that, sure. Yeah, as a Western is also sort of about people who are celebrities but are also real people who are interacting in the real world, right? Like so many stories about like Buffalo Bill Cody, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is a great
Born
name.
in Muscatine County.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
I did.
I could tell.
Yeah. The way they talk about Brad specifically, but eventually the way they talk about everybody is just like, these are, we presume, people.
Yeah.
Like people who live and die, and, you know, people who get sick, and people who get beaten up, and people who, you know, have sex and, you know, have children even. But they aren't really discussed like that. They're discussed like they're either celebrities or like fictional characters.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a few favorite parts. One of my favorite parts in this book happens early on where a guy is talking about, he's like, I was about to kill Brad, but then I just couldn't bring myself to do it. As if it's like, oh, I was going to have a bagel, but I just couldn't get off my ass to go to the bagel store. It's like, I don't know, to me, it's like, I really just couldn't bring myself to commit the ultimate taboo. You know what I mean? And there's a kind of casualness to it that I find really funny, I think.
Well, you bring up the word ultimate, and more than once in the book, somebody's like, so you want the ultimate, right? And they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
And it inevitably means death.
Yeah.
Death. Just combining sex with death.
Yeah.
That's what it means. But then sometimes it's like, does it mean child sexual abuse? Does it mean rape? Does it mean does it mean some other weird thing?
Rape doesn't even really seem to like be a category in this novel. Like the concept of rape, because sex is currency, the idea of rape is just sort of like,
And people talk about necrophilia in this book like it's not a big deal.
yeah, it's really weird.
Like there's cannibalism in the book, and it's like somebody will tell a story that has cannibalism in it, and then the follow-up questions do not include questions about the cannibalism.
Right, like my favorite is when there's another part where like someone's like, "This forum's getting lame now. Come on over to the Nick Carter website. We're gonna be talking about Nick Carter over there."
Well, they're going to talk about murdering.
That
Yeah.
is the most realistic aspect of the book, is that there is a splinter group chat.
Yes, the Splinter group chat, and then it's like, "Well, why aren't you over at the Aaron Carter group yet?" And then
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
this is a novel about Aaron Carter.
oh yeah, that was really hard too. I was like, oh, he wasn't dead in 2004. Yeah, it was a little like, oh yikes. But I love that part. I think it's it's funny to me that varying descriptions of Brad, like Andre wrote up the other day, there's like, is he circumcised or not? That changes. The size of his dick changes. Whether or not he bleaches his asshole changes. Like
He's either 115 pounds and 5'7", or he's 6 feet tall and 160 pounds.
and it's like, which is it? Like,
And it
it's
could be
like,
anywhere in between there too.
yeah, it's crazy.
Eye color varies a lot. As
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. My thing about this book is I felt like, but this book kind of triggered my POTS in a way. There's this thing that it's very effective at manipulating the reader. For me personally, I want to hear what you guys have to say. And I'm familiar with Dennis Cooper's work. Like I know his deal. I know that he's like a transgressive fiction queer writer. And I was like taken to the limit. I was like, oh my God, this poor boy, this poor child. Oh my God. And then it's like, oh, it's not real. And so it like takes you back to baseline. And then you're like, oh God. And then another horrible thing happens. You're like, shit. And then it's like, oh, but it never really happened. And so it's this constant like.
I've read a lot of Dennis Cooper books, and he always writes about beautiful teenage boys getting murdered and then fucked.
Or in oscillating order, yeah.
He might move the order of events around, but he's more or less got his idea of what he likes to write about. And then the thing that changes is sort of like the formal structure for how he decides to communicate that story.
Yeah, and one thing he said, has spoken about a lot, is that he's frustrated that people only focus on like the violent aspects of this book and don't like give him credit for how formally interesting it is, which I think is fair. I believe that. I think this book in particular is such a big deal on like for like the alt-lit community online in particular, because it's like one of the only, in my opinion, only good internet novels. Like there's so many bad internet novels.
They started making
including you, John Darnielle.
Internet novels, probably mid-90s?
I guess, what is the first internet novel, I wonder?
I looked into that and I couldn't find a definitive answer. There's a lot of stuff that gets produced in the late 90s that has, people communicating with each other over instant message or in chat rooms, or like it's the kind of thing that was like hip for writers to write about in the 90s.
Yeah.
But then like epistolary novels have been around a long time.
Exactly.
It is more or less in the style of like, say, Dracula,
Yeah. Trying to think about Dracula writing about Brad. Brad, the talented hole.
Give him extra holes in his neck.
Yeah.
He could barely even notice.
That's one of my like intrusive thoughts at this point. Actually, is the phrase "talented hole," which occurs in the book, and I just think
it is pretty typical of the stuff that Dennis Cooper writes about in all of these, in Guide and in Period and stuff like that. There's a lot of attention paid to, it sort of feels like when you read a bunch of these that it's, not so much like a story that's supposed to tell you about something that people did and therefore tells you something about people, as it is just like over and over again, we are spending time with this particular person's sexual fetish.
Yeah, but also he's like, all of his stuff is about ideas too, which is what I think distinguishes. Like, he's a novelist, sure, but like he's also like an artist, and I think his books are like both novels and that they tell a story and they can contain the capacities of like what a novel is, but they're also like doing something else that I find really interesting and sort of like there's like they feel interdisciplinary to me somehow. I don't know why.
No, for sure. I mean, Dennis Cooper is a poet as well as a novelist, and also
a video artist,
and had a film that came out last year, and then did journalism at different points, like music criticism and stuff. Dennis Cooper, I don't think is like super concerned with whether or not people like understand him to have a particular medium. He's just Dennis Cooper. He's sort of an art star of the literature world.
For sure, yeah, absolutely. Taylor, you did not care for this book. Would you be interested in telling us why?
I'm trying to understand, dear listener. I'm trying to get it, trying to be open-minded. It's not clear to me what the point of this book is, what people like about it, and what the author's intentions were. I didn't find it to have any merit on a formal basis. I don't think that you can, 2004 or whatever, but I don't think looking back you can make the argument that posts as a medium is anything but. I called this Hag Slap, is what I called this book.
Hag Slap? Tell me more. What does that mean?
I think it is for heterosexual voyeurs.
Oh, interesting.
I do I'm gonna give the author credit to assume that he's a homosexual.
He is, yeah.
And that there must just be something I don't understand because I don't know why you would write this and I don't know why you would read it.
Okay. I read I went on Goodreads, which is always where you go to read, really what the intelligentsia have to say, and all anybody complained about was like oh, it was just what's the point? What's the point? What's the point? And I was like, I don't know, like I don't know if that's the right question to ask.
It does feel a lot like what it is like to spend time in an online community.
Yeah.
That part feels realistic, even if none of the things that occur in it feel realistic.
Mm-hmm.
The way that people communicate with each other feels like the way that it feels like to be on an IRC chat or in a bulletin board or something.
Mm-hmm.
Forums are things that were so much a part of the internet in the beginning of the 21st century, and then they vanished because there was no way to monetize them. It did feel at the time when that happened, right around the time of like the it started to happen when the iPhone, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like once everything moved to apps, people more or less stopped going on websites.
Yeah.
So, but like now, if you go on a Discord or something, it does also feel like you're sharing these like intimate moments online with strangers that you feel a connection to because you spend time with them, but you also know that they share interests and, maybe you laugh at their jokes or whatever. And it's an odd thing about these like online communities is that it feels both like the most human part of the internet and also like a kind of joke being played on all the users.
Yeah. And like there's like this sort of like there are in groups and out groups and like who's sort of like, and as Jax Taylor would say, the number one guy in the group,
Yeah, no, there's definitely a social economy that even occurs in the book, right?
Yeah.
Because like you get a sense like, why are they posting?
Yeah.
Is it to titillate each other by posting these stories? And some of the characters do mention that they are reading the posts as though it were some kind of erotic novel.
Yeah.
But like they don't seem to exclusively talk to each other about this stuff. They have the Nick Carter group, and then you also get a sense that they're like just chatting about things like recipes and sports scores and stuff.
Yeah. I also was thinking about how you would differentiate nowadays between forum and like Discord or whatever posting and communities versus group chats. Because they're different from each other.
Well, one big difference is that in a group chat, you presumably know everybody.
Yeah, you know each other.
You know each other in real life.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I was thinking about that. I was like, is there a group chat novel? Would that be interesting? I don't know. I think I'd be interested. I don't know. I also think with Dennis Cooper, he has a sort of I'm interested in him because he does this thing that I like where he doesn't seem to give a shit if you like him or not, which is appealing to me. I like that.
Well, he has a artistic sensibility that's consistent with a gay American artist who was born when he was born.
Yeah.
Which is, he has an art practice. He has a kind of understanding about what is expected of him in terms of, presenting identity through the construction of the work, but also, this obligation to be aware of the way that there are limits to the medium and this desire to push those limits.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea that the thing that you're making is exclusively existing in the discourse of other people who work in your medium. And this pushes people to be more formalistic.
Taylor, is part of the reason you hate it because you think it's like not doing good representation?
Oh, it's more nuanced than that, but to simplify, yeah.
Yeah, you just think you're like, how is this productive? Like, yeah.
I could see George W. Bush reading this and being like, no, they can't have rights. Are you kidding me?
Okay. The idea of George W. Bush reading the sluts is very funny. Yeah.
Laura Bush, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, she would.
Laura showed it to
Literacy
him.
is her thing, yeah.
I mean, maybe if we were living in like the fourth Obama term, right? And they'd like removed his brain from his body and put it in a like killer robot, right? And
Yeah,
like
like a
pronouns
kaiju.
were mandatory or something like that. Something like this would be cute, but it doesn't feel good
Okay.
at the moment. I'm a member of a demographic who's got a lot of negative stereotypes surrounding being sexually dangerous, right? And I just I don't like it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I don't want to.
You don't want to wander around that world. Yeah.
I don't want to assume that I know enough to completely dismiss the book as having any kind of merit, but yeah, like I said, in like
In 2026, it's just not hitting.
in this 2026, right?
Yeah.
If Obama was on his FDR run, right, and everything was like cool and
Maybe in Mamdanistan, will be the whole nation in like 10 years, then we'll revisit it and we'll talk about it again.
Yes.
In our paradise.
Even at the time, I said, when this book came out, I had been reading a lot of Dennis Cooper. I didn't read it when it came out, but when it was released, I was very up to date on Dennis Cooper. And there are a lot of authors who have written similar things, like Dao Lin, and like lately, there's a ton of books that are in the style of, these are documents printed off the internet.
There is actually a companion book to this that by Jackie S., who is a transgender woman, actually. And the book is called Daryl, and it's from the perspective of a cuck and his cuck lifestyle. And there's mentions of a character named Clive, who's clearly named for Clive Barker, because there's a lot of talk about Cenobites in it too. And Clive being possibly the one who killed Brad. And so they talk about like the Brian Brad thing in the book, and it's like a thread of the book.
So there is this like connection to other people who felt a strong enough idea from this that they decided to write fan fiction.
Yeah, and Jackie S. is also hilarious. But the thing about Jackie S. is it's deeply compassionate. It's a deeply compassionate novel about like this guy who imagines himself at the beginning of the book to be straight. Turns out things are complicated, and that he's a cuck, and he's there's a funny part where he's like, we need cuck rights, except no, because that wouldn't work. That's not how that dynamic should go. It's really funny. It's really good. Yeah.
Like a number that you call if there isn't that chair in the hotel room.
Yeah. Excuse me, I need accommodations. Yeah. And that's from just a few years ago, I think, and that was a big splash when it came out at the time too. But that it was part of that was like continuing this story.
I think that the desire that writers have, especially back then, 20 years ago when this was being written and other people were writing attempting to write the first great internet novel, I think that there was this idea that, well, if I'm going to spend so much of my time, and everybody is spending so much of their time reading things on the internet, then, that means that the way that we ingest information through reading is changing, and we have to, as writers, adjust to this new reality and this new paradigm for how language is used. The way people communicate on the internet is different from the way people communicate in real life.
Yeah. My thing with that is like, yes, it's the realistic fiction writer's obligation to depict the internet language as it is, right? If you're trying to do like hold a mirror up to it, that's your job, right? But I also for me, I'm such a word cop that I don't like the way internet culture uses so many words. So like if I were to make a work like that, I would be like, oh, but I don't feel good, because it feels like I'm condoning it. You know what I mean?
Well, and this book is drastically transformed compared to what it was actually like to interact with text on the internet in forums at the time, because of, from what I can tell, some sort of an attempt to create a middle space between the way that people actually write on the internet and what is expected of a novel.
Yeah.
Right?
What are the boundaries?
You look at an epistolary novel, it's unlikely that, generally speaking, most letters that people write are going to have that much narrative tension, right? Some people are really good at writing letters, but what are the chances that everybody this person knows is also good at writing letters?
Yeah.
And for it to be this kind of novel, you would expect there to be long passages of description of events and people and about, but instead, nobody ever talks for more than 2 pages at a time.
Yeah, and also there's no images.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Oh, there's some fucking images
there's
in this
descriptive
book.
language.
Yeah,
for
but I mean, there's no
sure.
like actual pictures,
Right, and on the internet there would be tons of pictures. Even back then, there would be
Yeah.
like.
Well, they reference images. They just don't show
Oh,
them.
I see. Yeah, no, you're right. That's a good point. I'm just saying
but
that was
why
a choice,
isn't
though.
why don't they put them in the book? Like, if I'm reading what these words are printed on the screen while I'm visiting this website, I would see the photos.
I think that would feel like less literary, you know?
Yeah, I don't think they can give us that much information either as the reader, because it would be too big of a clue as to the legitimacy of, like, if we were able to look at a picture and compare it to the descriptions
Yeah.
posted, for instance.
Well,
Well, I just imagine them hosting pictures that are like the like you know that internet video that's like with whoever see the leprechaun say yeah, and it's like the picture of the leprechaun, and like I would just imagine like that. Here's a picture of Brad, and it's just like someone drew like a like a cut out on a piece of cardboard or something.
I don't think it's crazy to, like, a couple of days after the Knicks win the NBA finals. It's not crazy to imagine that what people really want is to connect with one another,
Yeah.
even in the context of, like, things that aren't true, right?
Well, to me, it's just like this thing that I keep talking about, which is like this sort of shared alienation and shared loneliness and being alone together that the internet community inscribes and enables. And I don't know, that's what's available to us. And I resonate with that, you know?
I'm curious to hear from you two what, because I think if we completely set aside the content and substance of the novel, if this were just a novel about like how people communicate over the internet in 2004, maybe it's because I'm too ensconced in that to see outside of it, but I don't know what the point is. What is to be gained?
Well, I mean,
A transgressive writer thinks that if they achieve nothing else, the fact that they made you feel uncomfortable is enough. Right? And when we say transgressive, and that's something you brought up before, Eleanor, transgressive literature of this period, it begins in it begins in America with William S. Burroughs.
yeah. What?
Just a hot tip to the listener: if you're ever trying to sell me on a book, don't compare it to William S. Burroughs.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
I don't think that his books are especially well read these days. Queer got made, by Luca Guadagnino, and didn't win any awards and was pretty much ignored at the box office. But I liked it. But mostly people are not like real deep into Burroughs nowadays.
Laurie Anderson's like the last holdout.
Yeah, well, Laurie Anderson, part of that New York art world thing that I was talking about, and a lot of these transgressive writers, especially the ones from the 80s and 90s, who specifically deal with things about like gay subcultures and AIDS. They're the well-respected ones like Jane DeLynn and Mary Gateskill and people like this. But the one that this one felt the most like was Poppy Z. Brite,
whom I love. Poppy Z. Brite wrote the best biography of Courtney Love.
It's a great one.
It's so good. I love Poppy Z. Brite. She's amazing.
And she wrote about...
Was it Corpse?
Right.
Yeah.
Exquisite Corpse, which is about a serial killer, more or less based on Jeffrey Dahmer. And there's cannibalism, and there's murder and stuff like that. And the transgressive writer believes that, according to Burroughs, that you have to reveal the reality of existence in all of its grotesque truth in order for literature to be valuable to people in an age where otherwise it would just be like a pleasant diversion. If it doesn't upset you, then it isn't doing anything.
Well, I think what transgressive literature also is trying to do, and that I vibe with, which is that it's trying to tell the truth while also creating something new. So it's not mimetic in the conventional way. It's revelation and exposure, but also creation.
In these books, often there is a question, just as in this book, of whether any of the events occurred even within the context of the narrative in the book.
Yeah.
Right? Like in American Psycho, which is a comparison I think a lot of people make between Bret Easton Ellis and Dennis Cooper. Both of these, the gay writers who write about violence and sex in the same time period,
And
even.
who are funny.
Right, with a sense of humor, sure. And I get the sense of humor that's in the book. I enjoy the sense of humor in the book. I do think it's often quite funny. Uh, but I totally understand people who are put off in the year 2026 by a book that seems to start with the idea, I'm going to make you wish you weren't reading this.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know about you, but I look at dead babies on Twitter from Gaza, like, all day, every day for several years.
Yeah.
This stuff feels tame in comparison.
Yeah.
Right? Like, at no point did they drop a bomb or on a baby or shoot a baby in the skull with a sniper rifle. Like, there are things that
There are atrocities.
IDF soldiers have done things that would make Jay McInerney piss himself.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Yeah.
I really think that it's difficult in the year 2026 to say that this stuff that's in the book is anything other than, like, provocative. Like, provocative for its own sake and not even, like, honestly succeeding at it.
Yeah, again, the thing that people really respond to, though, for it is its formalism, ultimately. So, morality aside.
I just feel like those people would be entertained by shadows on the wall.
Oh, that's that's
understand.
Not an uncommon thing to say about experimental fiction writers. Jangle some keys. They'll enjoy
internet posts.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was novel in 2004.
Right, in 2004,
Sure,
that was
fair enough.
Yeah, yeah. But no,
it was exciting and cool and hip. And the thing about Dennis Cooper is that what appeals to me about the stuff that he wrote in the 90s was how cool it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Dennis Cooper is cool.
Yeah.
He writes about rock stars and murderers and drug dealers.
And he's incredible
and sex
taste.
workers. And he has great taste.
Yeah.
He's a poet. He works with all of these famous artists all over the world. Everybody in the world thinks Dennis Cooper's the coolest guy alive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This doesn't feel like a cool book. This feels like a book about a bunch of losers making shit up on the internet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because you kind of get that sense from God Jr. too, which is another book he wrote.
God Jr. is a very sad book.
Which is a very sad book about a father whose son dies, and he goes and plays the video game that his son was playing before he died. And it's very, very sad. It's also in my opinion, one of the great weed novels. It's a great weed novel.
There is I think, a book that does a great job of being about child sexual abuse and being on the internet, and it's called Ender's Game.
Yeah.
And Ender's Game is so much more upsetting and strange than this book
What
is.
happened to Valentine, I can't get over. Like, Valentine was like my favorite character in the world.
But there's always a difference between people who are legit weirdos and freaks and people who are putting it on for branding.
But Dennis Cooper is a freak.
Yeah, but I got the sense from this book that he thinks that he's looking down on the people in the book. I don't think he looks down on the people in, like, Guide or Period who are, like, criminals and monsters. And
I don't agree. I don't think he's looking. I would like your evidence to why you say that.
when you read it, everybody just seems so stupid and pathetic.
Yeah.
Like, the vibe you get from the 90s stuff that you wrote is consistent with the 90s conception of a particular kind of West Coast nihilistic coolness. Mm-hmm. This slacker culture that you see in things like Reality Bites in a kind of sanitized way.
Or the play Hurly Burly.
Yeah, exactly. Hurly Burly. There's a lot of, like, really aggressive confrontational stuff from that period that is about the emptiness inside post-Cold War American culture. Mm-hmm. And the desire to use things like sexual violence and drugs and transgression in order to find a new way to more directly connect with a reality that, according to Baudrillard, had been completely ripped away from people by the time everybody's watching, the Gulf War happen on CNN.
Yeah.
Like, it was more or less the first time that people in America felt on a large scale like they were alienated and disconnected from reality itself. Yeah. Even though this was something that had been predicted by the people like Guy Debord back in the 1960s. right? But if you look at what like he was talking about, you compare that to today, I mean, he looks like a whiny baby.
Yeah, it's unrecognizable. Yeah.
And even comparing today to the internet that we see in the sluts, like it's presenting this internet culture as being this like hedonistic, disgusting, vile, monstrous community of horrible people. And when I'm reading it, I'm like, wow, do you remember when there used to be people on the internet?
Yeah.
God,
So,
what happened to that?
I guess a critique could be that, like, instead of actually, like, identifying or skewering or
I mean, they have a community.
critiquing this culture, he sort of revels in it and is indulgent, maybe, and sort of so you don't really get as much of a sort of scintillating analysis as you could if he wrote otherwise.
I think one of the things you see in Dennis Cooper's books a lot is this idea that the homosexual community in any one of these stories is this like big fun family of people who actually care about each other, who happen to also murder each other just because that's how things go sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
But you start with this, this thing that's also in a ton of 80s and 90s culture, which is this thing that like the reason that the homosexual community in America survived the AIDS crisis was because everybody got together and loved each other.
Yeah.
And provided for each other and did mutual aid and like
he's telling an alternate, he's like, this is also what was going on. In that sense, he's taking up Fassbender, I think. I think he's like participating in that line of
But I mean, it also makes me think about what the world of sex workers in Los Angeles in the late 90s really was. And that was a world where people like Kevin Spacey and Bryan Singer were driving underage sex workers to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Like there was a real place and a real time where this kind of like shocking violence and depravity was normal and accepted and part of the lives of wealthy and poor people alike. And I don't know to what extent that ever changed. You do get a sense these days that that's not the kind of thing that people put up with anymore. That I mean, at least as far as branding goes, a lot of, different cultures and spaces and communities try to say things like we're trying to keep everybody safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know to what extent that's like, are things worse or better than they were back then? I don't know. And also this isn't even, I mean, it's clearly high fantasy. It isn't even reflective of the way things actually were.
Mm-hmm.
There was, like I said, there was a lot of bad stuff, but I mean, it wasn't just like people chatting with each other on a website. Like the real bad shit was being done by like millionaires and billionaires who were treating human beings like trash.
Yeah. It's so interesting, Taylor, to go back to what, like, one thing that I didn't anticipate when I gave us this book to read is I was like, that you would take forum posting for granted as like this, like, oh yeah, no, that's like, that's you're swimming in it. Like so that made me feel, one, very old, so fuck you for that. But two, grateful for your perspective, because it's like, oh yeah, no, that's actually just normal people talking, and that's
And to be clear, nobody misses 2000s forums more than me, right? If it were up to me, that would still be the only way.
Can you tell me about your experiences in 2004's forums?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I've
Or if that's
always
too private,
been I've always been a pretty bad poster.
What do you mean?
Like not skilled at it, and people don't usually like the things that I put on the internet very much.
Not getting a lot of
So,
updates.
Not a lot of updates, and I remember, like typing in all caps a lot and trying to act like a mod, but I wasn't a mod.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
party
funny.
foul.
And this whole time I'm like, because it was, I
How
don't know
old are
what
you
it's
in
like today.
2004?
2004, I was 10.
Or 10, okay.
Yeah, and so like I was like on these boards and in these chat rooms, like lying and saying I was 13 because that was how
Everybody
old you
does
had to
that.
be at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I don't know what, I
Everybody
haven't
does
signed up for a
Well,
website.
I definitely lied about my age on the internet when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. One assumes everybody is, right? Including the protagonist.
Yeah.
The star
I don't
of
think
this
they're.
novel?
Do we mean Brad? Do we mean Brian?
I don't, it kind of doesn't
so
really have a...
Do we mean gay journalist?
Fucking annoying.
I think it's interesting. I think it's
Zach?
interesting that we don't know who the protagonist is. I like that.
Elaine?
Yeah.
I think it's significant that there's one woman in the book,
Yeah, I
and that
thought
she is played as some kind of like ridiculous clown.
Yeah. That
You know-
that made sense to me. I was like, yeah, that's yeah.
Now, in Dennis Cooper's books in general, there's often not a lot of really meaty stuff
Yes.
for women to do.
We're not getting Jessica Lange in the adaptations or Susan Sarandon, we're just, it's not going to happen. So
The
yeah.
Bechdel test is when two women talk about making a snuff film of another woman without a man being involved. And this book does not pass.
Fail.
Now, Jane DeLynn has written some books that'll pass that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes. So it's kind of nihilistic, but it's funny. So that's about always my approach towards nihilism is I'm like, if it's funny, it's fine. That's generally my attitude. Like, if it's not funny, then it's the worst thing ever. But nihilism, if it's funny, it's totally fine for me. Yeah.
And I detected the humor in this. I'm a very sensitive person. And for that reason, I don't really engage with fiction very often because I don't like it when bad things happen.
That's a thing.
And I understand that that's like I'm kind of like closing myself off to a lot of the world of like literature and fiction and the things it can make you feel, the ways it can make you think about the world
You don't have
differently.
to consume everything. I don't watch F1 racing.
I mean, it's like you have to, like, I used to be, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast before or not, but I used to not be able to tolerate cringe comedy. And then I did, like, when I was like 24, I did exposure therapy. I was like sick in my apartment and I just watched like 30 episodes of Faulty Towers. And like, now I can do it. But I literally used to not be able to like I would leave. Like, we had this festival when I was at Grinnell called Titular Head. It was a film festival where students made student films that were funny or weird, and then people would screen them and everyone would like laugh and make fun of them. And I never went because I couldn't. It was like the idea of like people being made fun of or humiliated. Like, I would just literally sit in my dorm room alone instead of going to that because I couldn't handle it.
I remember as a kid crying because Mr. Bean was making a fool of himself. And I didn't want him to do that.
Mr. Bean, that was also same. I also couldn't really handle Mr. Bean. So in my 20s, I was like, I can't live life like this. It's 2013. Like, this is, I have to overcome this. So I did, and now I'm okay. And yeah, it makes me a less sensitive, meaner person, but I'm able to enjoy more forms of narrative.
Well,
than I
fingers
was before.
crossed that one day I too will be.
Yeah, I mean, that's
less
the thing about
sensitive and more
becoming.
mean.
Yeah, I don't becoming smarter, unfortunately, and becoming funnier over time as I've grown as an adult has like made me meaner. It makes me miss like this like really sensitive girl I used to be. Yeah, I mean, she's still definitely there, but like I used to be like I was like you. I was like you, Taylor, once there, but for the grace of God, Yeah, so I definitely understand and relate to what you're saying. I think I just decided in my early 20s that like I was like, well, the most important thing about me is the art I consume. Nothing else matters. Because, it was like, that was Bushwick in the 2010s. Like, that's the only thing that mattered, Then, I grew up and had a kid and stuff like that. And that's like, so now the art I consume is like second or third most important thing in my life. But yeah. Yeah.
I think you can compare this book to the most recent season of Euphoria in the context of like sex workers on the internet. Right. And, there was always this thing in all of the episodes of Euphoria about Hunter Schafer's character being a sex worker who meets people on the internet and is constantly in situations in Southern California that are potentially dangerous. Right. In fact, you probably could see a lot of Dennis Cooper's influence on the first two seasons, especially of Euphoria. The way that it depicts the danger and the hazards of sex work as being like thrilling or cool or whatever. But I do think that
And the drugs. This is a drug novel as much as it is anything else.
But the layer of separation where the only way that you get access to anything that is happening in this book is through someone else's description of it after the fact means that everything has been more or less like put through the filter of a person's recollection. You never see anything as it occurs, which means you have no relationship to the reality of the narrative.
But that's like realistic to me. Like that's how we live. You know?
I mean, a lot of writers have written things in this style.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there are a lot of mystery novels that are like this, and where the only thing you have access to is essentially the evidence and witness testimony, and then you come to a conclusion on your own about what occurred, and it's asking the reader to be the detective.
Yeah.
But in this book, I don't think there is that, because there is this thing that goes over and over again throughout the book of this like, no, none of what anyone says matters at all.
Yeah. Well, thinking about that detective aspect, Andre, next week we're doing The Long Goodbye with our guest. We're going to have my friend John Rapetti on, which is going to be really fun. And it's a movie, and it's about a detective. And I have never seen the movie, but I'm so excited to see it. It's about a detective and his cat. Correct, Andre?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and
Elliot Gould has a
I'm
cat.
interested to think about it in relationship to the sluts. I think that'll be interesting. What, Andre? What was to you what was your first Dennis Cooper novel?
I read Guide, I think, first. It was either Guide or Period, one of the two. And I read the Dream Police, the poetry, but
I actually don't really like the poetry. I'll be real with you.
I prefer the fiction, sure.
Mm.
I was reading it at a time when I was reading a lot of transgressive fiction, because I was living in New York City, and it was the early 2000s, and I was at NYU, and they were really proud of the fact that they had produced so many of this particular kind of writer. Every class I took, they wanted you to read Kathy Acker.
Yeah.
And I think that they're trying to like capitalize even back then on the like fresh grave of New York artistic relevance of the 1980s and 90s. Especially
Harvesting it, yeah.
gay artists who had died. Kathy Acker was dead by then, and Wojnarowicz was dead, and at the time there was a lot of like a desire to create this sort of pantheon of dead queer artists because of this bigger thing that was sort of left over from the 90s about canon reconstruction. We were, forget about like Ernest Hemingway. What we care about is the weirdos and the deviants and the freaks, and the people who wrote stuff that made people upset.
Yeah.
And a lot of them lived wild, crazy lives, and they're all dead now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess that's true, but I think that turning all of that stuff into a product to be bought and sold, in music and in literature and in the contemporary art world, it did sort of move our entire like culture and the culture industry toward this, cooler than you kind of attitude, where nothing was supposed to ever shock anybody.
Yeah.
But also, you're not supposed to put any of that stuff in anything anymore because it looks like you're trying too hard.
Right. The concept of trying anything, because nowadays everything is engineered not to shock you, but to keep your attention for as long as it possibly can.
Right. The shock has been replaced with spectacle.
Yeah, which is different. And also there's and spectacle also has transformed to not just mean like, oh, like a spectacular thing, like, oh wow, like blinding lights and fireworks and stuff like that. But spectacle can also be like watching someone peel nail polish off their nails, or watching someone move rocks around. It's like the sort of comfort slop is also spectacle. All of it is, actually, and that's something that I sort of learned, I think.
Well, anything that is intended to make you turn your analytical brain off.
Yeah, anything that makes you turn your brain off. Yeah.
Yeah, focus on the senses.
Yeah. I wanted also to think more deeply about how the anarchic impulse structures.
That's why I didn't like
his
it. I'm
work.
just kidding. I'm just
no,
kidding.
I actually no. Seriously though, because he's interested in anarchy. He's,
I can tell.
He's interested in sort of an inoperable community. This is something Andre and I were talking about. And I think that impulse obviously appeals to me, but not to Tay. And I like that. And it's sort of like, I think it's sort of like that book asks the question, what okay, say there are no rules, what happens? And this is what happens. And that's just like an experiment that he's performing.
But there are rules. I mean, there's even a mod.
That's
Right.
right.
Like one of the characters is a mod on the forum who says every single time says something along the lines of, "All right, I'm going to let this one stay up,
Yeah.
but watch yourself, counselor."
Yeah. And also just like what a funny thing to be a mod of, you know?
Right. Like
No, the mod's the one I like.
Yeah,
That's the most likable.
Is the mod the stand-in for the reader? I don't know. Andre is a mod on. Aren't you the mod on video art on Reddit?
yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I am the sole remaining mod of r/video art.
Yeah. What's that workflow like?
A lot of pretty mean messages from people when I enforce the only rule, which is that you can't post anything there that's been posted somewhere else in the last 24 hours. It's just to prevent spamming. And people get very upset and call me names that you would not be allowed to translate at the UN.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. No, it's true. But the whole community element of it and how it does seem to be about like people in a kind of Wild West scenario who are slowly moving step by step toward caring about each other. It does feel kind of like the films, as I said to Eleanor off mic, of John Ford.
I would love for you to expound upon that.
In a lot of John Ford movies, what happens is a bunch of honkies go west and they struggle not just to like survive the elements or animals or military conflicts with native people or with other people that they might encounter. They often find that the biggest struggle is amongst themselves to find a way to build a sustainable community. And you see this in the Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. You see it in Wagon Master. You see it in pretty much every John Ford film. He's obsessed, really, with the concept of America being made moment by moment on the frontier by people struggling with each other to find a way to live together.
Yeah.
And I think that in the book, like, the people are titillated, and that's one instinct that is encouraging them to engage with the website. But another thing that's going on is that they seem to enjoy spending time talking to one another. And, like, we live not far from the Leather Archives and Museum right off of Devon Avenue in Chicago. And that is a museum that is a monument to, sexual appetites, but also to the love and care that human beings have for one another.
Yeah.
And as much as this book is attempting to give us the impression that this sort of an online community is, more or less like the bulletin board version of Videodrome, in reality, spaces like this are actually made up of people who go out of their way to learn when other people's birthdays are.
Yeah.
And, they ask, hey, how's that thing going? Like, how's your mom? I saw that you haven't been around. Are you okay?
Yeah.
That's what online spaces actually are. Mm-hmm. And that's what they've always been.
I wanted to ask you about like your Western comparison with the John Ford movies, because I was thinking about how one thing that we've talked about in the past with Liberty Valance is Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is this concept that I've been thinking about a lot, which is a hate triangle. And how there's too many people for the sluts for it to be a hate triangle. It's like a hate like dotadron, whatever that shape is. But
it's like I hate spider's web.
Yeah, I hate spider's web. So I actually have been writing, I wrote a little bit about hate triangles, so I'd like to introduce this concept to you.
Please.
Okay, so I see the structure of the hate triangle as a kind of perversion of the concept of communitas. In a hate triangle, there are three figures, whether individuals as in a narrative or sometimes institutions, who represent and confer different ideologies about how people should live. For example, the U.S. political spectrum can be understood as not so much a spectrum, but more as a hate triangle. The Democrats, who represent corporate interests, the Republicans, who represent the Grim Reaper, and the left, which represents the importance of human life and flourishing. Now, obviously, this is a pretty overdetermined representation due to my own biases. So here's another one comprised of individual characters: Napoleon, Josephine, and the Tsar. Another: In The Dark Knight, there's the crucial crucible of Batman, Joker, and Harvey Dent. Another, in Full Metal Jacket, we have Joker versus the Marines versus the Vietnamese. In The Shining, there's Jack Torrance, his family, and the Overlook. The hate triangle is the shape of the entanglement structuring in many ways, both a society under collapse, The Dark Knight, Full Metal Jacket, as well as a nascent or transitional one. Rather than robust social relations or institutions keeping a family or social order intact, affective alliances emerge as tensions in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, for example, John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, and Lee Marvin need each other as much as they want to be free of the concept of need. So that's something.
You mentioned communitas. This is the Jean-Luc Nancy idea
Yes.
about how people interact with one another. The concept of there being like there are people who are on your side and there are people who are not.
And the hate triangle is the perversion of that. It's like debasement of it, you know. So yeah, I'm interested in the hate triangle. I'm interested in all kinds of forms of community that are in excess or in direct contrast of like everything that Andre was just describing. Even though like the sort of ugly side of community is really interesting to me. There's a great book I'd love to recommend to everybody by Miranda Joseph called Against the Romance of Community, and she's very unkind to theater companies in it, which is totally warranted. But she also she's like, theater companies are like, this is what community does.
Just once, I want to hear allegations that a director was a sweetheart.
Yeah.
He gave me a ride home.
But yeah, she goes. Yeah, it's very good about like how community gets weaponized in neoliberalism. Like, oh, you have to do this for the community, right? And so I'm really interested in alternatives to that, and I think that Dennis Cooper is too. And so that's why I wanted to think about this book. Yeah. Any further thoughts, Tay-Tay?
Yeah, I want to clarify, I suppose. I don't consider myself one of these queer people who's like, well, we would be just fine if not for the least assimilable of us mucking it up and you know, soiling public opinion. So I would hate for what I said earlier in my joke about George Bush reading this and saying, hell no, to be construed that way. My fear is less about. So to be clear, if I was what's this guy's name?
Dennis Cooper.
Dennis Cooper. Thank you. And if I survived the virus, even if I'd witnessed it from afar, I wouldn't let anybody poo-poo who those people became as a result of what they went through, right? And so I want to clarify that I'm not
policing.
I'm not, and I'm not against the homosexuals acting homosexually. My like fear and aversion that this book inspires in me is not actually about the gay people at all. It's the heterosexual public.
Yeah.
That makes me fearful. Where I'm like, no, you go away. This is in house. You don't worry about these things. All right. And in a moment of cultural tension, I am that anxiety is heightened, and so I don't to Dennis, to Globo Homo. It's not you, it's them.
Yeah. All right, thank you. No, that's a very good clarification. I appreciate that a lot, actually. So negative forms of community, negative affects. I'm just interested in all of those things. I kind of am interested in the like allure of discomfort that he engenders in his work. Like, I don't know. I think that's cool, and maybe that speaks to sort of a relative privilege of mine, for sure, maybe, but also maybe not. Could be outside of that.
I think you can draw a line that goes through, like, you know, Alfred Jarry and Jean Genet and like Arthur Rimbaud and, you know, like this whole, you know, 19th and 20th century French idea of the historical avant-garde as being people who have a community project through art to shake up specifically the comfort of the bourgeoisie by confronting people with the things that make them uncomfortable simply to make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
To discomfort the comfortable.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think that you can, again, I hate to be like, it's 2026. I hate when people do that. But in the present, I don't think you can look back and say that like slowly like murdering somebody on film is objectionable to the bourgeois. I think they love that shit, actually.
Yeah, I mean,
I think this is right up their
that's
alley.
something that the historical avant-garde actually has been interested in exposing.
Interesting.
You know, like with
Okay.
Sallow and generally.
Sure, and in Buñuel's film of L'Âge d'Or that ends with a bunch of rich, famous people going into a sex dungeon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like the idea that Lolita was like just like a honey trap. He's like, I'm going to write this weird fucking book to have every freak expose themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Should we do Lolita someday?
Maybe we can do Lolita. I don't know.
The other thing I want to say is that it probably is ultimately good for me to engage with media that makes me uncomfortable.
Next time we can set you up in like a Ludovico technique situation. We can like sit you in front of our TV with the we can get the supplies necessary for that if you need. Yeah.
I noticed an
drops,
extraordinary amount of clothespins when I came in. I was wondering what that was about.
We've been hoarding them. We're waiting for this
Not
moment.
my business.
No, they're just left over from when we used to have a clothesline in Taos, New Mexico. It was beautiful.
God, you're romanticizing the clothesline?
It was beautiful.
You know, we can have a clothesline here.
The birds will shit on it.
They have birds in New Mexico.
Not as many.
Oh my God. Thanks, listeners.